We are live.
Well, hopefully. But yeah, okay. Well, welcome to, I think we are. There's six people watching, so let's go. Uh, Welcome everybody to another Fellowship of Hands stream. I think this is the first one, the first stream we're doing that's not Rings of Power related. So it's a big one. So thank you to everybody joining here. We look forward to having a really fun discussion about one of the better TV shows in the last couple of years, maybe. We'll get to that very soon. Just before we go and do that, just to then introduce the people here. So we have Shiv from just top to bottom. Uh, we covered together the whole season, so we already talked about it. So he's going to be helping us with the backend stuff and obviously with his comments. Shiv, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to try to throw some crazy takes this episode since I've been pretty consistent throughout this podcast. So I'm try to fly in left field here.
All right, yeah. I mean, we've done a lot of that. All right. Then we have Jessica, who. When did you join Fellowship Fans? How long has it been already?
November, maybe. So a couple months.
Well, there we go. So yeah, Jessica, another legend of Fellowship Fans team. I mean, you've been popping up, I think, like for quite a while with us, and now you're a part of our team, and it's awesome to have you here. And yeah, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the kind words in the introduction. And I am excited to listen to Shiv's hot takes today. So
That's what we're here, basically. Um, that's why the 6, 7 people in general is here. And of course, we have a very special guest from our community and wider Tolkien community and other communities as well. Dr. Nosy, awesome to have you with us. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I don't know, you can also tell us like maybe how long have you been in the FF Discord and Tolkien community, and what communities are you in?
Oh, hello everyone. So this is Dr. Nosy. I've been in the Tolkien community, I'd say 5 years now, like very strongly. So when Fellowship of Fans started, I was in that Discord, and I've been with the One Ring .net a bit, and so I've been like all over. But yes, I've been very excited about this show because this is my favorite George R. Martin's novella. It's my favorite story ever. And so when they announced they were making this, I was already like, in the clouds. And so I'm like very excited to be part of this and like just chat a bit about, what the fans think. And I guess like some of us who, are not, who really, really enjoy fantasy, who enjoy Tolkien. And now we get to see like a show like this that kind of is small in scope, but very huge impact, right? I think on TV especially. So I think that's very interesting. And so thank you for inviting me and for contributing.
I mean, you were one of the people who carried our Westeros channel on our public Discord, so it just made sense. And actually, thinking of Jessica's ideas, like she was the first one that thought of this, and it was actually a brilliant idea. So here we are. Um, yeah, well, the show is done. It's been a month and a half of awesome half an hour treats, and here we are dealing with the aftermath, which I don't know. It's always it's always odd to be like, well, it's gone now. But I think the good news is it seems like the show will be back within a year or so. We won't have to wait as we usually have to wait for 2 years in this modern age of TV and everything. If with all the things getting so fast and like streaming being so accessible, you would think that somehow you would not have to wait for like 8 hours of content for 2 years. But here we are. Um, so yeah, let's just start off. Um, I guess with some general impressions of the season, and maybe throw in like a quick comment about how worst are you in A Song of Ice and Fire? Maybe like specifically this this story. And let's start with our guest. I mean, you kind of already touched upon this, but Dr. Nosy, yeah, what's your background with Westeros? A little bit about that, and then mainly let's focus on the impressions of the season and how awesome it was. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you didn't like it.
um, so my background in Westeros is like, I read those books when I was in high school and kind of like, carried it with me, watched the TV show. Didn't care much for the finale season, but also was okay with, kind of like in the grand scheme of things where it was going. Um, but I was very excited because like I had read the histories, and so that and the novellas, and so I was always interested in the stories that were not directly about Game of Thrones. Kind of like why did it come about? Why are we where we were? So House of the Dragons, of course, is like had taken off, and it was all exciting. And while that was going on, I was mostly interested in Rings of Power because I was interested in that age for Tolkien stories, and so I was more obsessed with that, I would say. But when they announced this show, I was super excited because, like I said, smaller scope. It's so much more what I'd say like an Arthurian type of fantasy story. The beginnings of a king, that kind of like story, including and with like the adventures that they go on, right? And then of course a knight's adventures, which anybody, I mean, if you really love fantasy, your first introduction was probably something to do with knights, right? Or King Arthur and the knights of the round table, like something to do with that, and dragons, right? So there, all of this comes back to that thing, the types of stories I grew up with and I really enjoyed. So keeping that in mind, going into the show, I was not completely expecting the humor that we come across. In some ways, this show is like a black comedy, and it's surprising to think of it that way, right? But like there are some aspects
Yeah,
to
sure.
that, and that meets with essentially like not overly fantastical. We're not there yet. We don't get that, you know, immediate impression that there are dragons and magic going on. But this is still Westeros, right? So that's still in the back of our minds that there is like something in the background. But even so, what a great introduction to somebody who's not ever experienced, right, Westeros. To just be gently led into this is just a knight's tale, right? And boom, you meet the kid. You meet a future, prince or a prince now, and then a future possibly a king. So what is that journey, right? So right at the beginning, and so that is very very exciting. And I thought that was what I really really was just so impressed by how accessible it was.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It really was an easy way to get into the whole world. And I know actually a couple of people who, well, most of them through my recommendation got into this and were like, "Oh, do I have to watch Game of Thrones? Do I have to watch House of the Dragon?" There's so much. There's like 10 seasons of TV before this. And actually, no, it was great. It was a very nice and easy way to come into this world. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. But we'll you already touched on some points we'll get back to a bit later. But let's go to Jessica. What was your did you read the novellas? What's your whole thing with Westeros? And yeah, how did you like the show?
Yeah, so I was introduced to Song of Ice and Fire right around when season 1 was finishing up, and it was getting really big and everyone was talking about this Game of Thrones show. So I was like, okay, let me check this out. I binged the first season. I was like, all right. Read books 1, 2, and 3. I don't know when they came out. And then watched every subsequent season live. And yeah, so have read the first novella and loved it and loved the show and have read Fire and Blood in the past. So I would say I'm not as well versed in the Martin universe as I am in Tolkien's, but still have read most of what's out there. And yeah, I mean, I know we're going to get back into some of Nosey's points later, but I'll just say, yeah, this was a winner for me. I love having, appointment television on HBO on Sunday nights. I'm super excited that this is going to be back every year. I know that, it's a hard pill to swallow that it's 30-minute episodes and there's only 6 of them, but if we get it every year, I'm okay with that. And we have, House of the Dragon season 3 coming up in a few months, so we won't be missing Westeros for too long.
And we'll be talking about it a lot this year.
Yeah.
It seems. Yeah, I mean, we also have like a special point about House of the Dragon season 3, so that's also something we'll touch on definitely later on. But yeah, and then let's wrap up with Shiv. I guess you and I already talked about this in the previous 6 episodes, but let's just give a quick. What's your point of entry into this particular story?
Well, as you could probably imagine, it was actually Lord of the Rings, Sean Bean, when he was cast as Ned Stark. I was like, what is this show? No idea what Westeros, no idea who George R.R. Martin was. So that was it. It was Sean Bean, and spoiler alert, doesn't he get killed in the first season? And I think when that happened, I was like, why am I watching this show? I'm so upset. But yeah, then from there I got obsessed, and I really liked it. And oh god, I guess I would say like the final season, I know it's divisive and whatever, I thought it was fine, but I guess a little disappointing. Like my headcanon was going in a different direction with it, but I still think it was like all right TV. It wasn't like, quality dipped in season 8. Like we still got some good stuff. But to then go to this show and House of the Dragons, like I'm loving House of the Dragons, and this is probably hot take. I think this might be my favorite Game of Thrones show right now, actually, or Westeros show. Might be the recency bias, though. It could be that.
That's not too hot of a take. It's that good.
I think it's that good. Yes.
Yeah, I think if anybody says this, it's like, this is my favorite. Like, that's completely fine. Like, you gotta do better, my man. We need hot takes. That's like lukewarm.
Needs spicier.
Yeah, like we need spice. We need to keep in your takes further
all right,
more than that.
The main character of the story is actually the Laughing Storm. That's it. That's my hot take.
Okay.
Clip
Right.
that.
We'll come back to that.
Yelled at.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool characters in here. And actually, speaking of characters, thank you so much for mentioning this. How about, let's just, how about we talk about the cast? It's been, I'll actually just throw in real quick. I did not read the novella, I think, but I did read the comics. So I remembered, I read them like 7-8 years ago. And I remember mostly Trial of the Seven, actually. That's always so iconic that I do remember all these particular moments. Some of the key moments, and I definitely remember the moment with Baelor in the aftermath of the battle, which was, well, it's kind of actually in my memory because it's just an iconic moment for a fantastic reason. But, I mean, where do we start with this? With talking and praising this show, because it's like,
amazing
the
cast.
casting, so the story itself is obviously amazing. It's been beloved for many years for a great reason. And then like each of these people left a mark. Even Prince Valar in bottom left corner, he had like 5 sentences, maybe? And yet people loved him. Like that was like Shiv, I think you said in the last episode podcast review that he was your best moment of that episode, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
the acting just came out of nowhere. It's like, wow, I wish we had more of him.
Yeah, and he was there for like 1.5 scene. I think we saw him maybe when they were arriving or something. So yeah, just let's just have chat a bit about the casting, because the casting has been insanely top tier from start to finish. So yeah, I don't know who wants to start. Um, Maybe let's obviously talk about Dunk and Egg, and then maybe try to choose your standout performance from beyond those two,
Oh
and then
my
I guess
God.
other people will then jump in with filling in the gaps for all the rest. And let's go with Jessica.
Yeah, I mean,
Put you up on the spot right away.
absolutely nailed the casting between our main Dunk and Egg. That duo they have to nail that to make the show work. And I think they absolutely did. I haven't looked into where they found these guys or if they had seen them in anything before. But yeah, Ira has spoken about how he's a big fan of a lot of Martin's duos, The Hound and Arya and Brienne and Pod. And I think he's got another winning duo on his hands with these two. So you can kind of see that kind of buddy copness of some of those other duos interactions in Game of Thrones come through here. My goat, gosh, this is so hard. Okay, wait. I mean, I think I'll just bring up Lionel because he's not really given much to do in the novella. And you're like wanting more of him as you're reading it. And I'm just really grateful that they saw fit to expand his role for the show, because I think that Daniel freaking nails it. I think that's the name. And I'm not going to remember last names of anyone, but he was just a delight. And I know that he's going to be more of a major player in future seasons. So, I mean, gosh, what a legend. We'll have to come back and talk about all the armor at some point, but he's going to be my goat for the season.
Anya Ling's, I mean, just look at that grin and that face, just the charisma.
Yeah, his acting choices in this scene were I just love him.
He's a terrible maester. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
It's just that whole scene is like, it's like every line that he says in that scene, I feel like it's like you can make like a GIF, or not a GIF, but like make it like into like a highlight of the scene. It's like every line is a highlight. Like, come with me and I'll love you like a brother. Well, fine, then I'll hate you like a brother later on. And then this, like with both with the matrons on, it's just brilliant. Nosy, what about you? So, I mean, I guess we can agree, and let's just shout out the gentlemen's names. So Peter Claffey, who plays Sir Duncan the Tall, and Dexter Saul Ansel. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to the moment where we praise the two of them as well, because absolutely iconic, both of them. But maybe let's just for now focus, because these two are already brilliant. Let's see who are these other standout performances. So Nosy, and I think I know who you're gonna go for, but let's go. Let's hear it.
It's not gonna be a surprise to anybody here to know who it is, but hands down, because he gave his life for Dunk, has to go to Baelor. So Bertie Carvo, who plays Baelor Targaryen, Baelor Breakspear Targaryen, right? The legend. May songs be sung of him, right?
Here.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because in the story, if you've never like sort of read the story, or kind of like sensed anything about what was coming, you would think that somebody like him should be closer to a kinder version of Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. You'd think, there's a lot of things he could have done. Not cared, for one thing. But in the story itself, and this is like how powerful this show is, but in the novella, when I read it, it was sort of like, wow, it was a wow moment to me that this was such a turn. But in this show, it hit so hard. I mean, they landed it so well because they broke it up into two parts where you saw basically in episode 4 where he counsels, Dunk to be Dunk, this is unfair, right? He's suggesting that this is all due to, well, technically due to Egg interfering, right? Egg wanted Arian dead, and so essentially tricked Dunk into coming in. I mean, Dunk had to do what he had to do, right? But he was also enjoying cider with Raymond, so he didn't know anything. And as Baylor rightly points out, this was part of the harm that was caused, even though it wasn't intended. And as a consequence of that, it was unfair because, of course, history had shown that anyone who went up against the Targaryens, literally lost limbs, right, as payment. And so Dunk has to fight because this is the way you can settle things. And Baylor did not expect for Arian to come with suggesting a trial of 7, right? So
That was the moment where you could feel his his disappointment in that moment where he is like, he thought, okay, we sorted it out,
right.
And then Arian just was the trial of the 7, and then the acting and just the how do you call it? Like the face palm that you could see on his face that he made it internally, because he had to obviously play it out. Like it was just beautiful.
And to give you context for this, like if it was just Dunk and Arian, it would have been like a gentleman's duel, like you'd see like in the 18th century or something. But a 7-on-7, who is Dunk? Who does he know? He knows nobody. Who will fight with him, right? And so it was a trap from that moment, and you could just see like Baylor now starting to like feeling that, oh my gosh, now this is even worse than I could have calculated for. And so it's so interesting because right before that, also when he's having this conversation with Dunk, and I don't know why Baylor cares so much, right? We don't know why Baylor cares so much, but for some reason he chose to care because of Egg. Like that's the only link I can see, right? And as a result of that, he's like, we don't know his thoughts, we don't know what's going on, and then we don't see him for a while until the end of the episode where Dunk's doing the call, like, who will stand with me? And boom, Baylor appears out of somewhere, right? And you're just in that moment, you like looking at the armor and you're gonna, oh, that has to be Valar, right? But when he lifts the armor and he does throws his head back, which is a great nod to the next episode, by the way. Takes off his helmet, throws his head back, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is Baylor, right? And it is insane. It is kind of like, why is this guy here, right? And that little moment between Maekar and Baylor, right? In the beginning, I think in episode 2, when we see them together, really enjoyed that interaction, right? Like they're kind of like chatting, and Baylor is kind of like, oh, don't cuss people out. And Maekar just keeps dropping F-bombs. It's kind of great. And essentially like already like apologizing for his brother, knowing his brother's heart, not to be like somebody who is, acting out just because, he's like that, but more so he's concerned for his sons. And so he's already like somebody who thinks about somebody else, right? He's already wanting to protect Maekar, from like whatever other people perceive. So it's amazing to see this moment, and they have this quiet conversation right here, where Maekar is like, oh, this person attacked my son. Baylor is like, no, but he protected the innocent. And then this is where kind of like, if you're really reading behind the, the lines, you're kind of like, wow, this is serious. This is so serious. It's his brother versus brother, right? Uncle against nephews. This is insane. Who does this? Who stands up against their family like this? Especially someone who cares about their family, right? And yeah, that you start to like feel that. And so this scene ends, this whole interaction ends, and the music swells up because you hear the Game of Thrones theme, and now you're screaming. And amazingly, Dan Romer, who I love, who did the soundtrack, then transitions from Game of Thrones theme into Dunk's theme. And so the proper way to watch this scene has to be from the moment Baylor enters all the way to the end of the credits, because you need to hear the whole score, right? You need to sit with that. And that music itself spoke so much to me, because in that sound, it was somebody who was a future king, or somebody who is basically royalty, and somebody who is basically, a peasant, right? The two hands are being linked, right? In the right cause. And that was such a powerful moment in the music, when you hear that, because you can hear the strength of Westeros right there, right? You can hear that. I mean, I have to say, it's like a patriotism, right? If you're true Westerosi, you feel that moment, because you're just like, oh my gosh, this is what we wanted, right? We want our leaders to be amazing, and we want we want them to inspire, the knights, but the knight himself isn't amazing, right? And you're just like, wow, they're unbeatable. And that's the music you're leaving on, right? And we get to episode 5 and tears, right? And I'll let
think
you
that
guys
moment,
talk about episode 5 if you want to.
yeah, I think that moment was definitely one of the. That's one of the most iconic moments. I think probably already in all of the Westeros adaptations so far. Just that moment when the music hits, it just does hit really beautifully. And the whole build up with the episode and so on. But yeah, so Shiv, what about you? So we got we covered 2. Where are you going with this? Who's your fave? Are you gonna steal mine?
Dang it. I won't steal yours.
He deserves it.
Oh, this is tough. If I would have probably gone with Baylor, but you know what? Since I gave him his flowers for that one scene, which is it's an insane take to do, I'll go with Valar.
Okay, now that's a
Insane
proper
take. I thought the acting was really well done during that scene, and like I don't want to steal everyone else's thunder. Like obviously Baylor, I really loved this season, but for side characters, I really like this performance. I feel like it spoke to me. Kind of reminiscent of like it's almost like a reverse King Theoden speech where he's, for King Theoden, he's talking about having to bury a child, and this is the inverse of that when he's talking about burying his father. But yeah, really, really liked it. Superb acting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jess, you want to say something, or did I misread the?
No, I mean, just agreeing. He had a little bit of screen time, big impact from this guy. Yeah, just great acting choices here compared to the novella as well. I really liked what he did in, questioning why the gods would let Dunk live, but his father, this great man, had to die, and comes across a little bit more angry at Dunk in the novella, and here it's just sort of like this sense of confusion and not understanding, and I think that he just really brought it with that choice. I like that a lot from him.
He sustains that in his face. You're watching the whole time, the camera's on him, and you can feel that moment he's holding between his lines, essentially, where he's like describes this, his father, and then he says, "What?" Let me ask this question, right? Why did he have to die? And if you're watching that, it's just so touching, because that moment he pauses, it's almost like it's not just the question of Dunk, it's the question of the gods, really, right? It's such a touching moment, and so I have to agree, it's a great choice.
Yeah.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I knew the scene was coming, but I didn't I wasn't ready for that like 1 minute and a half of just like, oh yeah, that's just right in the heart, straight to the point. Okay, well, shoot, thank you for this, because yeah, I think I thought you might go for another character. So now I'm torn who to mention, because we need to mention both. So I'll say my favorite, and then I think another who's obviously also everybody else's favorite. So first of all, Sir Raymond Fossaway,
Yep.
the absolute bro, the broest bro that ever broed, the rookie of the, as they say, the rookie of the season, the man who just showed up. He came, he saw, he conquered, he became a knight, he met the bro, he fed the bro, he saved him, like, and then he got himself a very nice lady. I mean, just absolute champion of this season, and like I don't know, like the dark horse for the MVP. I feel like, and from that scene where they meet, and we see him being beaten down by his rotten apple of a cousin.
Mm.
What was his name? Actually, I forgot.
Stefan.
Stefan, yeah, Stefan. I don't know. He was just so sweet. You could just see that he's just a nice guy, and then to go all the way, he's a side character, but obviously it's not a huge show, so he was one of the key members of the supporting cast. And the character arc that he goes through, and the fact that they managed to put this, and like this is how he starts. He starts by being thrown in the mud by his cousin, and then ends up with becoming a knight, fighting in the second ever trial of the 7, beats his cousin fair and square, 1-on-1, while defending the honor of an innocent man. Gets knighted by Sir Lionel Laughingstone Targaryen. It's just a gorgeous character, and also the fact that he looks like a love child between Andy Samberg and Kit Harington just adds to the whole thing, because both of them are obviously nice dudes as well. And then him just being like so lovely. I don't know, like it's hard not to choose this guy. But then again, Baylor, Lionel, I don't know. It's really hard to go over any of them.
Yeah.
So,
if I got
yeah,
out,
let's spend a few moments talking about Raymond.
yes.
Go.
Oh, I was just gonna say MVP, right? Like man of the match. This was the guy, and what can we say? Like this, his heart was in the right place from the beginning and throughout, and he was that true friend, right? And I loved him. I absolutely, like, what a guy, for me, like I want to see more of him in future seasons. If we ever come back, right? Like if he ever comes back, I want to see more of him. He's definitely left that feeling, that this is somebody we want to visit with again, right? And so yeah, that's basically what I will say there. If anyone else wants to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a day one. I mean, he's a true knight. Like we get a couple of them in this show. I mean, his portrayal in the novella, it's pretty spot on with what we get here. Obviously, I think the bit at the end with him marrying Lady Rowan is a little bit additional, as well as the whole Sweetfoot bit, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But this guy, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to talking about the whole theory of the 7 and everything at some point. But this guy's my warrior. So yeah, he shows up for Dunk when he's about to get, curb stomped by some Kingsguard. Just despite every, danger to himself, this guy's a true friend. I mean, he would be my GOAT if I didn't say Lionel or Baylor. But yeah, MVP, like started from the bottom. Now we're here at the top. Like what a guy.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, obviously what we could have theoretically done was, and I guess in a way we are, the tiers, like S tier. All three of them are S tier. Like it's just like who's more awesome. It's just your personal preference, I guess, and it's really fun to choose. But Shiv, you got any thoughts on this gentleman, or do you want to maybe try to guess who was that other character I was aiming for?
I'm going for the other character now because I thought that's who you're gonna go with, so that's why I didn't say it. So,
Yeah, let's go.
Mr. Laughing Storm.
Well, I mean, I guess Jessica kind of already touched upon him.
Oh, you have another character?
I can guess.
Man,
The movie card,
there's
doesn't it?
well, I was going to say so to cut the suspense, Lady Rowan,
Oh,
because for
wow.
me she was
I was
she
gonna
was-
say that.
she was the very interesting red-headed lady that we meet, I guess, already in episode 1, and she, I don't know, she just, there's the scene where she and that other lady, I don't know what's her name, she kind of fades away as the season goes on, but they were kind of rough towards Dunk, and he was trying to talk to Lord Dondarrion in the first episode, and afterwards, when he calls them out on the second time they meet, he calls them out on this. They kind of like drop the mask, and we see that they talk about how they have already seen green men who put their lives on the line, their body on the line, to try to get to glory, to get to some higher level, like do some social climbing and so on as knights, and being, I don't know what's the. I'll just go with the poetic way, ladies of the night. I don't know what's the. Somebody correct me if there's a nice term for this.
Sounds pretty nice.
More poetic term. So they kind of know a thing or two about putting your body on the line to kind of provide for yourself, and then they make this point to him, like, take care of that body. It's the only one you got. Like, they really get into this, and it's great to. Like, we have David's comment. Listen to this. Must be what it's like for people who don't know Tolkien. Honestly, yeah, it probably is. But thanks for being with us. That's our boy David. Yeah, and then they make this point, and then this kind of serves as something that actually goes through the season in a way, like one of the themes of like people getting hurt throughout the season, and how this is a very terrible kind of sport, if we're going to call it sport. So anyway, she's there, and we see her, and she's just there. Like, I don't know, like if she's on screen more than like 7-8 minutes in total, like maybe 10 minutes in the whole season. But every moment we see her, like the usage of these background characters is so good, because we just see her reaction once or twice in some of the later episodes, like during the tournament. Like, she jumps up and yells, I don't know, at some point, some kind of support for Dunk. But she's I don't know, this lady, and it's like an all-star match, basically. Like, who had the better performance? Like NBA All-Star. It's like, who's the best guy here? Like, it's really hard to choose, because even someone who spends 10 minutes on screen and is definitely like a C-list character in terms of importance, just absolutely owns it and just becomes an unalienable part of the show, because you cannot now imagine the season without her, right? So that's kind of my little it's not a rant because it's good, but it's a positive rant about this awesome lady. So somebody else pick it up.
No, I'm so glad you brought her up, because I mean, shout out to the writers for giving us a couple more named female characters than George does in the novella. But yeah, I think that making the connection between the, I don't know, to say commercification or commodification of bodies here between Dunk and Rowan, or the Ladies of the Night, is just such a profound kind of an integral part of this story. So she does, remind me of Shay as well, or Roz, or whoever. But yeah, she and Raymond just came out on top. and she's such a mother. So I shout you out for calling her the GOAT because she's so great.
And also, just one quick comment here. So the actress's name is actually Rowan Robinson, but I've definitely seen somewhere people call her like this. I don't know why. So I guess I was like maybe they named the character after her because she didn't have it. She became so good. I don't know, but because like for example on IMDb it specifically says Red. That's her name, which is I guess it shows how important the character was on paper. But then they cast this awesome actress that she just ran away with it across the fields and across the mountains, and you're never gonna catch her. So yeah, and she continues obviously this awesome tradition of redheads being absolute champs on Game of Thrones and Westeros shows. Shiv, do you have any particular comments, maybe something we missed about her, and then we can go to Dr. Nosy.
Yeah, one connection I don't think I've made. Like I think in one of our podcast episodes, I mentioned that she reminded me of Rose or Ross, however you pronounce it, from Game of Thrones. But she also, her character reminds me of a lot of the ladies from Peaky Blinders. Like they're like very scrappy and also intelligent, and like that's kind of the vibe she gives off throughout her appearance in this season. So yeah, I agree. It's definitely worth highlighting that she was one of the background characters that stole the scenes a lot of times. So yeah.
Nosy, what do you think? Did we miss compliments that we could have given to this lovely character?
Oh no, I agree with exactly what Jessica and Shiv just said. It is. I like the energy she brought, and like you said, I really want to visit with her again. With Raymond, I want to see their kids, right? I want to see their farm. So I really hope we do see them soon. That Egg and Dunk come rolling by into their orchard, and it's just so surprising. Maybe they're so successful, right? And so it's like, oh wow, you have all of this, and I'm looking forward to that because I don't think this is the end of their characters.
That's something I am curious about. I don't think they should be appearing in season 2. I'm not. I guess I think it's already been said that they're going to Dorne. So they'll probably get there at some point early in season 2. So I wonder if maybe we'll get the chance to just at least like a quick cameo, maybe somewhere on the way or something. Maybe they'll pop to some random tournament or wherever, and then maybe see Raymond there. I think the sad thing about this show is that a lot of these characters, we are either never going to see them again, or we're going to see them, or we are supposed to see them like quite some time down the line.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a shame, but also like one of the best things the show did was the level of faithfulness to the original material. So obviously we don't want them to break this. Like let's keep this a tradition. Let's stay faithful to George's writing. But maybe there's room because they will have also a bit longer episodes next season. Yeah, so as a storyteller says in our chat, I actually think they got a good send-off. Like, yeah, a lot of characters got a pretty good send-off, kind of. We leave them in a certain spot that's kind of tied up pretty well. I think maybe with, and I don't know if it counts as a spoiler, but I think it's known amongst the people who read the books or have been talking about the books that sometime down the line, and we'll keep it at this point, Lionel and Dunk, obviously in their long lives being high-level lords of the kingdom at some point, will maybe meet. But nobody else got mentioned, and let's keep it that because I see Jessica smiling already. We'll sustain the spoilers.
Well, we could also talk about the other character we might see in the future because of how they changed the ending to the novella. and they kind of, I think amongst the fans, like we, at least in our Discord, we had a bit of a discussion about this because we weren't sure if this was ambiguous or not. But of course, Makar, right? When he's like, "Where did Egg go?" and it's like this frantic moment, and you're just thinking, well, in the novellas, Makar gave his blessings to Egg to go to leave with Dunk, and in fact gave Egg a ring for emergencies, right? He's like, show this when you're in trouble so you can get out of it, because this is like, a get out of jail card. And it's like amazing that the show ends with essentially Egg taking agency and basically running away for the second time. While Makar is left pondering, like, where is my son, right? The son he wants to raise, right? Wants this perfect son. And so, like, I think, knowing that George Martin's working so closely on the show, that it can't be too much of a coincidence, to like have changed this slightly in a way that we won't actually see him again. So I do think we might see Makar again someday. And maybe it'll be years down the line, and we don't know how much he will have changed towards Egg, or how much more troubled he will be. But I think if seeing that this is the story we're gonna get to, this is the prequel to Game of Thrones, then I think we will see him again. We must, right? To kind of like give us this whole flow of what's happening with the Targaryens, right? Keeping up with the Targaryens. This is what this Game of Thrones is about, really.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned this, because I saw there's a theory that basically the way Makar reacts in this situation was kind of, so again, it's a theory. It was maybe an intentional addition that actually does still correspond to the novella, where he was pretending that he didn't know where Egg was. Maybe he, for whatever reason, wanted to save face, quote unquote. And
Oh yeah, that's my thing.
I played out as is this your theory?
Oh well, I don't know if I was the only one who was saying this, but yeah, that's where
You be
I
aside from
was
you.
standing on it.
Yeah, I probably saw it from you then. Then you can.
No,
maybe
I
finish the
mean,
thought.
I think that, where do I stand on it? I think it's pretty unclear in the novella. I mean, they end their conversation, and Makar doesn't say anything to Dunk when Dunk is like, "Hey, your other sons didn't turn out so great living in a castle," and Makar just kind of like looks at him and then walks away. And then the next morning, Egg shows up, and he's got the ring. So, I mean, I posited based on what we've seen from Makar that this could have been him saying, hey, like, where is Egg? Even though I actually sent him to go be with Dunk and have this ring. I've also seen Iris say, like, I thought it was just a joke to, like, I thought it was a funny scene to, close out the end of the show, to have, Makar losing his sons again. But just knowing that George is working so closely with them on this, I'm inclined to think that, we've got something more at play that we'll see in future seasons. But yeah, I definitely think that we will see. I think Sam has said he's not going to be in season 2, but I mean, maybe he'll be in season 3. I don't know. Yeah, it would be, I mean, Egg is a little boy, so I wouldn't put it past him to like not have learned his lesson about lying and to just like lie again. But I don't know. I think if that's confirmed in a later novella that Makar actually gave him the ring, that would be a very major change that would have some implications down the line. But I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that one. I don't think me and Nosy saw eye to eye on this either.
I think so. My opinion is a bit different, only because of how Egg acts. Of course, when we meet Egg, he's this really brazen kid, right? Like, has this attitude that Dunk's like, why are you, like, you deserve a clout under the ear, right? And it's so funny because there are moments where, when we get to the episode of the Squire, and we actually get into a little bit into the inner thoughts of Egg as he's functioning in this world. And he's talking to the horse, and he's like, my father says, a horse is dumber than a dog, right? And he only understands the crop. That was a very telling statement that the sons are sort of afraid of their what do you say, a very strict father, right? Somebody who is not afraid to discipline with physical means. And in fact, Daron later on says, it's better to lie than to suffer a foot whipping, right, from my father. And it's just this idea that, okay, this is, he is a hard man, right? Maekar is a hard man, and his boys are sort of have to live under that. But especially Egg, who he confesses, right, with Daron there, that Aerion does, has had abused him, right, and has had, done things to him that really caused him to fear. And it's so interesting when Egg goes to Egg and Duncan Baylor in the room, right? And Baylor is saying, Egg's saying, oh, I wanted Aerion dead, and Baylor never asks why Egg wants Aerion dead. Right. Instead, Baylor says, the Septons say, we must love our brothers. Right. Which is more telling about Baylor. Right. His thing is okay, we should love our brothers. He does not understand the dysfunction between Egg and his brothers. Right. And it's so interesting that, again, with Maekar, right, when Egg goes into Aerion's room and wants to essentially grievously harm Aerion, that there is no sense of Maekar asking this question: why does my youngest, most perfect son, right, of my 4 or 3 in the story here, why does this person, why does my boy want to kill my other son? And it's you don't when people aren't asking that makes me think, okay, there's something, right? So Egg himself took agency. He knows what happened to him is wrong. He knows that if he stays here any longer, he'll continue to suffer the way he has. And so taking that in charge and running away, that made sense to me in that context. So to me, Maekar being annoyed because of this characterization that Egg puts on him, that fits better in the story for me. So that's just where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I think for such a small show, in terms of length, actually gives us so many things to discuss. This is not the only conversation that had these different viewpoints that we had. So it's always interesting to hear how it's for example, that one scene of Maekar at the end. It's oh, they changed his character. Oh, he's faking it. Oh, they didn't change his character, but he's not faking it. There's always so many points of view, and it's not even anything.
Yeah, even
huge, which this obviously is though.
Even with how Maekar is talking to Dunk about Baylor's death, right? There is this. You can't. I mean, it's so interesting because we know how it goes in the novellas. We know the history of Maekar. We know how much regret he felt about Baylor. But in the performance, my goodness, it was amazing. I mean, there was this Sam Spruill. Spruill. I would say he should go up for an Emmy just for this character he plays that you but also want to feel he has to be responsible because of the way he reacts to things. You know what I mean? So it's almost you can feel the regret, and if you really like him, you'll empathize with that. But also, if you didn't like him, you think that this guy is, he's just trying to blame everybody else and not himself, right? And so I think it's just so interesting that he comes down as this figure that you could think of as being too, kind of like Snape, in Harry Potter. You either love him or hate him, sort of thing. I feel that's our Maekar here in this story, and I think it's so so well acted. Oh my gosh, the 3D dimension that we see of this character in this story, right? More fleshed out than the novellas, more interesting, more complex, more even it's almost heartbreaking actually, because you're just now I'm so torn, I can't decide, who is this guy, right? And so just find it very interesting.
Maker did really make a niche for himself. I mean, a niche, quote unquote, in this show as well. I wasn't sure what I forgot a lot of the plot, so I couldn't actually think of what to expect from him. Which because I read many years ago, so I just knew the basic things, which was actually really cool because then I actually got a lot of surprises. But yeah, Maker. I mean, as you said, all of them have been great. All right, so we have, by the way, shout out to. Let me just check. So about 400 people on Twitter or X, whatever is your favorite title for that social network. Shout out to those 400 people over there watching us. Yeah, thanks for being with us. We hope you are having fun. And I guess that's about the number of views our podcast episodes got covering this. I guess everybody is on Twitch and they just tune into YouTube when the premiere is over. Actually, so I have a quick question that's for. I feel like Jessica and Nosy both are more versed in the lore, so maybe you have an idea why we haven't yet gotten Maester Aemon mentioned, because as far as I understand, he is a fourth son here, and we actually didn't get him mentioned. Basically, I feel like he didn't get a mention. So, do you know what's happening with this?
Yeah, so he's the third son. So he's the older one than Egg. So I know he's off getting his training to become a maester. Nosy could probably say more about that, but I can't remember if they actually mention him by name or just say the other one is off and, we'll learn more at some other point.
Just a quick, before Nosy gives the maybe more deeper lore answer. Maester Aemon is the old man, the lovely, legendary old man in Castle Black that Jon Snow meets when he gets there. So he's from the original Game of Thrones show. And we get a few mentions, and as he's actually passing away, he is remembering Egg, and he's calling out his lovely, his dear brother Egg in his like dying moments. And he's been, I think, one of the most underrated but best memes about Game of Thrones is that he was such a level of badass that he actually dies of natural causes in Game of Thrones, which he's the only one basically that ever happened to him. So he was just terrific. So so he's the third son. Egg is the youngest one. So yeah, Nosy, do you
I think
want anything to add there?
Right. I can't really speak to him right now. We do know though, at this time he should be training as a maester. That's why he's not at the tourney. He's at the Citadel. But beyond that, like, does he show up later? That is for Ira Parker and GR to go over, because I don't think he's even mentioned in the next two novellas, right? Or
Yeah.
I do believe he might be mentioned by Egg at one point, but I do as to like why he got his name. But that's it. We don't actually know much about who he is, like, as a fleshed out person. So I'm very interested to see him show up as well. I know though, in from looking at the interviews from the cast, Sam Spruill, I don't know if he knows, or I can't really speak exactly, but it didn't sound like even he mentioned him and anywhere. So it's I don't know what that means.
This is the gentleman who plays Maker.
Yes, when he talks about his sons, it always sounds like he's talking about three people, right? But he of course has a fourth son and two more girls, but we don't actually get mention of them. So I don't know where the show will go, but I think it'd be interesting. Of course, I want to see that link, because we do. I mean, I don't want to spoil things, but like, we do know eventually, like, there is a line of succession. And so Aemon does show up in that line of succession, as we know from the Game of Thrones, books. And so what he did was he had to step aside and choose to be with the Night Watch. Basically, like, I mean, that was also a brave step, by the way, because, who wants to go work at the Night Watch, right? But he chooses to do that so that his brother Egg can become king. And I think that is very, I think that in itself might be a very interesting story to explore between the novellas and Game of Thrones, right? So in that period, if Ira Parker and George Martin try to fill up the stories, I'd be very interested to see Eamon in the future, for sure.
So I think he has a solid chance of showing up, but probably a couple of seasons down the line. But I think it would be very interesting to see him in even in any kind of amount. I guess I'm lacking for words at the moment. Yeah, but we have a comment here by Victor Di Giovanni. I think they should do a novella season, then a season of one-off adventures. The season 3 is next novella, then more one-offs. It is, etc. That will give George R. R. Martin time to get ahead. I guess they plan to kind of cover those stories that are currently out one by one, and to give them like each one season. But they already did mention that Martin is kind of already gave them some notes like further down the line, and is kind of already thinking in that direction. So I think it should be good. But I don't know, like give George R. R. Martin time to get ahead. I think he's like about 20 years in the minus, so he needs a lot of time to get ahead of
Yeah.
things he needs to write.
I think he said about like 10 or 12, like the outlines of 10 or 12 further novellas or something like that, some absurd
Right.
number. Hopefully, you know, the success of this show plus seeing how true they stayed to the actual novella will, you know, maybe motivate him to devote some time here to making sure they've got enough material to create those subsequent seasons. But
And I
it
don't think,
would.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, and I think people are worried that, you know, the writers are going to be working off of George's notes, and it's going to end up like Game of Thrones season 8. But I think the difference between this show and Game of Thrones is this show is just mostly 2 characters, right? We're following their point of view. In the Game of Thrones, it's like an ensemble. Like it's a totally different, you know, vibe there too. So I was just, you know, adding on to that.
It's more intricate.
Yeah, I think there is an advantage here that we didn't have with Game of Thrones.
And we know where this story ends. We
Yes.
know the endings of these 2 characters already, whereas I'm not sure exactly what the notes were for unwritten books that D&D were given, but clearly it wasn't the ending that George had initially planned out or whatever. Like they didn't know, and that's kind of why those seasons went a little bit off the rails. So I think, yeah, you know, that is always a fear. And I don't know how closely George worked with them on those later seasons or how much they listened to them. And, you know, it seems like the relationship between a showrunner and George always starts off pretty well before maybe it kind of goes down the drain. But, you know, we'll see how this one progresses between these 2, because it seems like they both have a real love for these 2 characters here.
I mean, I think the show is in safe hands either way. It seems like Marty has a way bigger influence on the show. He has way more control, and the showrunner, seems to be in like a very close cooperation with. So it should be good either way. I think. I think there's just a lot to look forward to, and I feel like also this show, and we'll touch upon it a bit further down the line, but did kind of reinvigorate the franchise, which is awesome to see, especially heading this House of Dragons season 3. But we'll get to that a bit later. So now we're going to do something that we usually do on our podcast, which is the Groot, the Bat, and the Ugluk. The good, the bad, and the ugly or misunderstood. So we'll start with the Ugluks. So what are the things? So basically, you have to choose one thing or one scene or one character or one plotline, whatever, something that you either did not like, or something that you think maybe. So I think we kind of expand this definition into if something it doesn't seem in the show that maybe was a bit misunderstood or something. But I think because we're covering the whole season, there's probably like at least one thing, even if it's small, that you maybe didn't like. So let's focus on this. So just so we're not like completely, oh, praise, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So let's take a Shiv. Good sir, what was your look of the season?
Well, definitely going to sound repetitive, but it's just the length of the episodes. I wish we got more. The season was great, and it's a double-edged sword, right? Like if the episodes are longer, the season's longer, that means they probably could have fit in some fluff, and maybe the pacing wouldn't be as good as it ended up being. But I would have loved to have gotten more this season. So yeah, that's my only complaint. So it's a pretty good complaint to have. I feel like is just wanting more.
Biggest slam dunk. So let's see if that was a slam dunk. Look, so let's see if Jessica has a better. I'm more. Sorry, not the better one, but if she has like something else, because I feel that was probably like the biggest one and the best one and the best problem to have.
Okay, I'm not sure. Hopefully, I understand the misunderstood aspect of the Ugluk, because there's nothing that I didn't like per se. Obviously, I have, I wish they were longer. I wish there were more episodes, et cetera, et cetera. But so this is something that I liked personally, but I feel like other people didn't and was like maybe misunderstood. And that's the flashback in the middle of the battle. So yeah, stop me if I'm like, this is not actually what this is supposed to be about. So yeah, in the novella, the battle's like 3 pages or whatever. So we do get this great battle that's kind of like chopped in half by these flashbacks, which I think is, I get, the story progression or like the momentum of the episode, blah, 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 whatever. But seeing this, I feel like is so, like we get this look at Arlen's character, which I think was really valuable. We get like lots of great quotes from Arlen about being a true knight and why like a hedge knight is the truest form of being a knight. But this is kind of where we get to see like why Dunk is the way he is. And like we might have thought Arlen was kind of like a POS to an extent, who, we've seen him like slapping Dunk around and everything. But here we get to see like this is, Arlen is super drunk because he's mourning the death of his squire / nephew in this battle. And, still his like first inclination in this situation is to defend the cause of 2 innocents and protect them. So I think that like getting to see that, where, seeing that parallel of what Arlen does here for Dunk, and Rafe next to Dunk, who's just stood up for the innocent and is finding himself in this situation, is just like a really powerful moment throughout the season. And, I love the quote about, that Arlen says about being a hedge knight is the truest form of knight, because of all these reasons. Knights serve a lord, and, hedge knights serve the cause of those that, are innocent and deemed worthy. So this flashback, I think, was pretty polarizing, but for me, I think it also just worked really well thematically for this season.
All right. No, I think that is a great shout for this category, actually. I don't know. I think a lot of people did like the flashback. It was just more the timing of it, even though again thematically it can still fit perfectly into this. And I definitely, a lot of people did like it exactly the way it was done. But yeah, I don't know. I think there was maybe room. There was room for maybe putting something in somewhere else, and then maybe getting like quick reference to it in the middle of the battle. I'll just see, we have in comments Victor again. Without a comment, I think flashback was added because of the reshoots. Feels like the original intent of the episode was to show more traditional battle with lots of one-on-one conflicts with built up to. But the shift to pure dunk POV necessitated chopping all that out and leaving the whole. I think that could be also because it would be kind of hard to make a whole episode about like these things won't last for half an hour. So I guess they maybe needed to like patch up this time, because if you're seeing it from his POV, like it cannot last for half an hour, I guess. But I think overall it did and it did work pretty well still. It did thematically feel appropriate. And despite a lot of fears that a lot of people had, it did not actually like, grind the episode to a halt or something. Even though, well, I think it's not completely. Like it did.
The episodes are too short. Like it,
Yeah.
The episode's going to move fast anyway. I think anyone saying it's stopping it in its tracks, it's like, I mean, it's not an hour-long slow episode anyway. If we, for like 3 minutes, maybe it slowed it down. And then as soon as Arlen shows up, it's like, oh yeah, this is actually thematically crucial to the story that we're telling for us to be seeing this. It's like, I was surprised, that it's not in the novella. Like this should have been something that we see.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I did not know that. But anyway, that was absolutely spot on for this category. So
Okay.
hell yeah. Dr. Nosy, what about you? Anything bad you have to say about the show, or is there like another misunderstood scene maybe that some people didn't like and you actually found very enjoyable?
I think because I have to tell this to people, warning. The episode 2 cold open of Sir Arlen, yeah, that was not, something I have to often warn people. Oh, you're starting a Game of Thrones, now you're going to expect to see things, but especially in episode 2, in the first 5 minutes, But that would probably be the only thing, because I agree with everything Jessica just said, that it was amazing to actually see and watch Sir Arlen's story being this complete thing that's also in the show, right? In the beginning, like in the opening, he dies, he's buried by Dunk. You see, Dunk talks about him, he's being slapped around, etc. Get to episode 2, Arlen's like a fool, he's like a drunk knight, no one cares. And even the ending of that episode, Dunk says with determination, like he literally says to Egg, right? Like, everyone thought of Arlen as, some sort of fool, but like, or they didn't remember him, but he was everything. He made me who I am. And then tomorrow, when I enter the lists, they'll see like what that hand had brought, right? And going from there to then this cutscene in the middle of battle and seeing who Sir Arlen really was, like the grief and the honor hand in hand, and how much that inspired Dunk. It was amazing, because then you end with the whole show. You end with essentially the ghost of Sir Arlen on the horse, right, riding behind them, and then takes a left turn, almost to say, Dunk, you're on your own now. And it kind of blew me away, like how the story kind of tricked me into thinking that doubting Sir Arlen in the beginning, to giving such a beautiful send-off, right? To say that this is the guy. He was the guy. He was that true knight. And so, yeah, I would say maybe misunderstood, but like, and not entirely ugly, but maybe that scene, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of the same for me. And just to be clear, like I agree with you and Jessica's point. It was important to see that flashback. Perhaps it could have been slotted in somewhat better moment. The one thing I thought about it was perhaps we could have seen it in the previous episode when he was sitting in jail or something, and then maybe we could have seen like a much shorter, quicker reference to it, or maybe this. I don't know. Maybe the start of I don't know. I think there were a couple of moments where it could have worked, and then in the middle of the battle, we see that shot of Sir Arlen again. So we would see it, in the previous episode where we had that, I don't know, 10-minute flashback, it ends with get up, and then we see the scene of get up again when he is in the middle of the battle. But either way, I think it's just like, do you prefer it here or there? It's not a huge deal because it did end up working. But
really quick point before
Yeah.
we move on. Something
Yeah, please.
that I just want to say about this. Totally. I mean, we could have seen it somewhere else. A vote for why it's placed where it is. I think it's not totally clear, and George still leaves it ambiguous as well whether Dunk has been knighted. But I think the get up and Dunk rising from the mud when, arise Sir Duncan or whatever is how he would arise after being knighted. And for Arlen, I mean, they're kind of casual. Like if he did knight him, maybe he didn't use the exact words for him to say get up after Dunk is like undergoing this trial. I think is also just a really powerful moment that speaks to why I think it works here. But I don't disagree that it totally could have worked in flashback in like a dungeon as well. But I do like that it's placed there just because of that, knighting question, knighting connection. We've already kind of gotten that called out when Dunk didn't knight Raymond and Lionel had to do it. So I think that is just one last point I wanted to make on that before we put it to bed.
Okay. Oh, I mean, fair enough. Yeah. So anyway, I'll just say quickly, like my look was basically the same as Nurse's. I don't think we particularly needed that opening. I don't need to have trigger warning for something like this, for like random 5 seconds of like we fill it out without. But with that said, and with all this amazing negativity around this terrible show out of the way, we can go to like the Groot of the season. So basically, I'll ask everybody, what's your like your second best thing about the show, and then we'll keep the best thing for the later section. So, what's your second best thing about the show, and also a certain Lord Beesbury back from the other side joining.
Tell you what the best part of the show is. Lord Beesbury.
Rest
so
in
we
peace.
got Aidan joining the fray. Then you can start us off. What was your second best thing about the season? It can be a scene, a particular performance, a theme, I don't know, or something else, some other element of the show. So second best thing about the show.
Well,
the first season.
First best is obviously Lord Beesbury. I mean, there's nothing else that comes close. But second best would probably be the score. I've been listening to the score all week. It's so incredible.
That's probably an underrated thing. I don't think we talked enough about the score, because it's actually the show has been so good that it's kind of flown under the radar actually.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with the score for this show, and there was a lot of really cool musical moments they did. They used jazz in the last episode, which I thought was really cool for a fantasy show. I thought it fit very well. I mean, I don't know. I'm just hopping in here for a second.
Awesome. So then tell us real quick, what did you think also of that 16 tons moment at the very end of the first episode?
Yeah, that was cool too. I mean, I liked the way that they did the music there. I thought it was very unique, and honestly, like, I think I just liked how quaint this show was. It was just a very I like how contained it was. The main character was the main character, and you followed them around, and everything was filtered through their lens, and it wasn't like this massive political intrigue show, which, there's a time and a place for, but it was kind of nice to just see a story set in this universe, kind of just from the perspective of one person.
All right. Well said. And I'm actually really happy to mention subject. I feel like we could have missed it by the end of the stream. Actually, I'm not sure we would have mentioned it, so I'm very happy that you actually did. Let's go then. Let's just go upwards. Nosy, what about you? Second best thing about the season. So
Um,
keep whatever is the goal of the season. Keep it for the next section.
have to agree with Aiden. Has to be the score, the second best. I mean, again, like I said, I was obsessed with Dunk's theme, and then hearing the Game of Thrones and Dunk's theme together, like I told you, that was like the peak of the show. But you know, I don't. I mean, wow. I still think about it and I get teary eyed, you know, because like I'm driving or something and I listen to the score in the background. I always see that moment in my head. And so for me, that will always be like one of the greatest things of this season is that score.
I mean, it has been perfect. Is it the same composer, Mr. Giovanni? I think it was different. Yeah.
Dan
No.
Romero.
Yeah, they've had different composers for all three series, I think.
Yeah, of Station 11 fame, Shiv, fellow Station 11 fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think
All right.
really quickly, just to say one thing about the score, I think Storyteller, I don't know if this was a joke, Storyteller, but you said there was a score. And I think that's actually really interesting because it does kind of just feel like the score becomes a part of everything and it doesn't stick out. And that's a good thing. Almost like it reminds me of, I'm sure everyone on this stream will be familiar if you've watched any of the Lord of the Rings appendices, where I think it's Sean Astin. They're filming like the Tower of Cirith Ungol scene, and Sean Astin asked the DOP Andrew Lesney, like, where's this lighting coming from? Like, and Andrew Lesney goes, the same place as the music.
Yeah.
And it's just like this profound kind of like, oh yeah, like this is to set, like to make this kind of environment come to life and to make the story come to life. And you don't think about the lighting of a scene or the music of the scene. It just like makes you feel and like fall into the moment. And I feel like that's what this like really, the show really did. And Dan did an amazing job kind of melding in the score that we're familiar with from Game of Thrones with like the themes of Dunk and the Targaryens and all this stuff. Honestly, it only really stuck out to me like in the one moment where Baelor shows up, and then because that was just epic, and then in the opening one, like where it cuts off.
I have to say, I watched the episodes back to back, and in episode 4, when you hear that Game of Thrones with Dunk, and then you get into episode 5, it's amazing because I mean, again, like I said, you have to listen to till the credits for episode 4 to get the whole score. Then you get into episode 5, and now you're ready. You're like, okay, let's go punch people, right?
You know what I
and then, but here's the best thing: at end of episode 5, Baelor falls, right? And you're in tears, like in that moment, because it's such a. I mean, even that small scene, they did so much there that it feels so intimate and it feels like a harrowing death, right? And then you go to episode 6 and you hear the jazz music. I laughed out loud. Okay, that's how much. Because first of all, Lionel and that Maester looking over at Dunk, you know, right after Baelor died, I was just like, what the heck? You know, I was just laughing out loud. So there was something about, you know, a death in this show, almost like we can move on. You know what I mean? Like they want you to move on. It happened, let's move on. And this is a funny moment, right? Like, and this is why, like at the end of that scene, it's so funny. Lionel is like, we're gonna leave. The Karen's about to leave after the roast, of course, referring to Baelor's funeral.
Yeah. No, I did want to mention about the music, which is one of the things I think is really interesting, is like another area of like pop culture that has really great music, but I feel like suffers that same kind of like phenomenon is like kind of like Dark Souls kind of games where they're like always lauded for having great music and boss themes, but you don't really notice them as much because when you're in the middle of it, you're like so swept up in the moment. And that's honestly what a good soundtrack should do, is like because I had that exact same experience. Like it's such an unassuming, quaint little soundtrack, but then you listen to it after the fact and you're like, oh man, this is is a banger, and it's because of just how well it melds into the world of the show that like it's not a distracting score, but I think it's definitely underappreciated.
Yeah.
I agree on all accounts. I think it's just, I think most of us, I mean, including myself, I think I basically noticed the score, unless in the very beginning of each episode, because you kind of hear like there's always something, but like basically that moment with Baylor, and that's when it clicked. Was like, oh, actually, yeah, there's music here because it just fits so it's not so nicely. Honestly, hell yeah, amazing point. I'm really happy we mentioned the score because it would have gone unmentioned probably. We got.
I love it. I love that
We
moment.
got a little Star Wars reference here from Andor, I believe.
Now that's a banger.
Another
That's
banger
a moment that
score.
uses music incredibly. Yeah.
For sure.
I did want to.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was just
just
gonna mention really
one,
quick
and then
because I'm gonna bail out here in a sec. But we were talking about good things. I did want to say one thing that I loved about this show, which is that I went into it thinking that I knew what it was going to be, and it completely subverted my expectations. And by that I mean we have gotten so much. I don't want to call them slop because they're some of the greatest stories we've gotten a little bit, but I want to say like father and son slop stories where like every show that comes out now, The Last of Us, God of War, The Mandalorian, it's always, you know, the grim father figure and the young little kid. And I thought this was exactly what the recipe was for this show going into it. I was like, oh, I've seen this before. It's the tall knight, stalwart guy, and then the young little like kid who has like the parent and child. But it wasn't. The thing that really subverted my expectations and really like excited me about the show is that it is very much a brother relationship. It is older brother, younger brother. And I like there's no undertone of like father and son relationship, I feel like. And it was so new and refreshing. And I think was something that instantly drew me to the show is like I didn't anticipate that it would go that way. I very much thought it was going to be like, oh, you know, Maekar is this overbearing father and he's rude. And so The Road is another great example. Love The Road.
Oh my gosh, shit with the reference. Damn, respect.
That's another.
That's that movie.
But I definitely I expected Dunk to be like, oh, the father that Egg needs. But no, and they even, they show that through the show about like, his own brothers talk to Dunk and basically say like, yeah, we haven't been good brothers to him. Like he needs a good brother. Yeah. And I feel like that's just it's just such a refreshing dynamic that I feel like I haven't seen done super well, especially not in like a fantasy setting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this kind of ties into my second best thing because, and bear with me, the second best thing about this show aren't actually these two gentlemen. There's a thing that, bear with me, it's hot take. It will make sense when we get to the best thing in the show.
I've been waiting for the hot takes. Let's hear it.
I'll let it build, and then the hot take comes in the next section. And the casting of these two and the chemistry, and actually exactly what Aina said, like the two brothers, and like they're so different, and they also it's not like this one guy knows everything and this one is learning everything. It's like Aegon knows so many things, right? Like he is this extremely well-educated young prince, while shit,
it was all a dream.
It was all a dream. All right, Bruce Willis.
They were playing D&D the whole time, actually.
They were playing D&D the whole time.
There's a secret seventh episode coming out next week.
There we go. Okay, we gotta cut out this part, put it like a special video.
Yeah,
with all the TFL theories. But anyway,
Chivalry Gate.
These guys were just so sweet and awesome together. Dexter. I mean, the acting, like this is when you're casting kids in almost anything ever, it's always so hard, so insane to find the lead that is going to be able to like actually feel like, oh, it's not kid acting, it's the kid that's actually on screen. This is the kid. It's not just a kid acting to be a kid. And to find it. And I don't know if for people you can who maybe haven't seen it, they can see his reaction when he gets it, and all his behind the scenes moments. It's just, yeah, basically, it's just so wonderful. And I just really, really, really hope, and people have said it before, that he gets protected in this industry. That's just obviously in many ways a terrible place to be, especially for young actors. So hopefully he gets really protected, because he just seems so precious, and he's done such an amazing job.
Mhm.
And then you have Peter Playfey, who's been cast as Dunk, and Exhaust just seems like, I just want to have a beer with this dude, and not maybe one for like 10 or something, just like hang out. Like there's that short they shared of him and the guy who plays Arian, just going out around pubs and so on.
You've seen the one of them doing a karaoke with all the knights.
Yeah, there's that one as well. It's just so wholesome. So yeah, I don't know. Second best thing about the show are the two of them, and this section builds up into my point later, but we'll get to it in a second. So I'll just throw it into Jessica. What's your second best thing about the season?
I'll make mine a quick one, and not as like kind of metaphorical or abstract. So I'm just going to say the costuming for this I thought was really great. I love all of the different armor. I'm really excited because the lead costumer for Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Libby Dempster, I think is her name, will be the lead costume designer for Rings of Power Season 3. So really exciting stuff. I think I think we've got one of the Apple, like Stefan's. Dunk's is great. Like that's straight out of the illustrations from the novella. The helmet is just great. I think they toned it down a little bit with the Targaryen armor, which I think was a good choice because it's a little bit ridiculous. In the novella, they're like helmets with their plumes and like whatever. I really like what they did with all the spikiness. The Lionel's helmet, like I love how, this is a little bit of foreshadowing this costuming, because Lionel always looks like he's wearing a crown. And we know from the future that eventually the Baratheons will take some power. So
okay, I just know that. Right.
Yeah. So he has antlers in all of his decorating and all of his costuming. I think it's fabulous.
Did you see they just posted today the Lannister armor somebody wore in a joust, and it wasn't even like on screen. It was like a full-on like lion helmet. It's like,
oh man,
it's like, this is crazy. Like,
that's so Rings of Power
can you try to
coded.
dig up this, Aidan or Shiv? Can you try to let's see that, because this is very low disco, because it's just the amount. You're doing a great job naming the points, so please continue.
Yeah. The Kingsguard armor I thought looked awesome. Stefan's armor was great. I'm trying to think of other armor that hasn't popped up on screen yet that we've seen. But honestly,
the Fossways.
Yes, the apple on Stefan's. I love it.
Like,
I love it.
Gorgeous. Come on.
Yeah.
But also, I really like that one moment, I think, in the middle of the Trial of the Seven, or in this episode, maybe it didn't start, but there was a point where you see Lionel's helmet kind of like in the further away in the shadow. It just looks so cool. You see it just moving through the mist or something.
The antlers, so good. But yeah, he wears. He's not wearing a helmet in the earlier episodes, but he's still got those antlers on. Like it's very much crown imagery that will, come to play down the road. Like he's not ever going to be king, but we get. Actually, that's a good connection to make, because Robert's Rebellion. I said it was going to be quick, and then of course I go off on some stupid tangent. But Robert's Rebellion, like I think this is just another kind of there's a good shot. Another indication of how much George loves tournaments and how much he's inspired by those kind of medieval works of literature that feature tournaments. I know Ivanhoe is like a big one for him, and he devotes so much of the novella itself to the initial like opening ceremonies of the tournaments and all of the different knights going at each other. And I think just the connection point between this tournament, where he says that this is like one of the most pivotal moments that could have changed the course of history in Westeros, was the death of Baelor Breakspear. And it happens at a tournament. And then if we look to Game of Thrones, the beginning of Robert's Rebellion, where the Baratheons take power, is because of a tournament where Rhaegar crowns Robert's betrothed, Lyanna, the Princess of Love and Beauty, or whatever they call it. And that happens at a tournament also. So I think, tournaments are very much integral to George's writing. And I like that parallel of tournament and Baratheon that we get here. So I'll be done with my armor.
Baratheon tournaments.
I did just find the pictures of the Lannister armor, but
yeah. Shiv, if you can, I think we have the tweet on Discord. So if you can just share it.
Yeah, one second.
no worries.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, but, I mean, if Game of Thrones, the franchise has been consistent with one thing from the beginning, it's the costumes. It has just always been top of the top of the top. So just to keep the consistency is great and awesome, and they have been doing a great job regarding this. So it's good to see that they keep this level of quality.
I think that this one, you can see the costuming even more. They don't have to spend any of their budget on dragons. So I do feel like the costuming in House of the Dragon in some places is a little dicey. There's not a lot of costumes for certain people. I think Rhaenyra wore the same clothes all last season, and some of her season 1 early looks were a little lackluster. But a lot of that budget goes to dragons. So here they don't have to, do any CG dragons. So a little bit more of that can go into the costuming. And I think, it's great. I love this mohawk helmet.
They did some smart things to distract from the fact that it was a small budget. Like the fog during the trial of the 7 was done so that it would make it seem like there were more people watching than there were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They 3D printed a lot of the armor too. So, and you can't believe it,
I mean, they just keep pulling magic out of this, and scenography as well. And yeah, it's just beautiful, and every shot looks just perfect. But speaking of perfect, we go to our buddy Shiv, who's an awesome dude. What's your second best thing about this season?
I don't want to beat a dead horse with what I've been saying, so I'll be quick. But for the second best, I want to say the humor for the season. I like dark humor, and I feel like the showrunners were able, for the most part, to balance it with everything else. Like, I know the episode 1 gag might have been over the top for some, and kind of seemed like it was out of left field. But
it's not my cup of tea at all.
But I appreciated even that scene for just ways you can interpret it. It sounded like in the behind the scenes they were just saying they wanted it to be a heroic theme that has this crazy swing to that scene, but the fact that it was Game of Thrones scene, it's you could interpret it, misinterpret that as them kind of crapping on Game of Thrones, which is kind of hilarious. But anyway, so the humor, the Maester, I laughed out loud during this scene. It's hilarious. Daniel Ings, I think we mentioned in the last podcast episode, he reminds us kind of a couple of actors, but he's kind of got that suave to him. And yeah, I hope to see him more in future things because he's great. Yeah,
Strong
so
George Clooney, George Clooney vibes.
George Clooney. Yes, George Clooney. He's got major George Clooney vibes. So hopefully that gives him a successful and long career.
I mean, he's just like if you made me choose one person I want to have that beer with, I would lose my mind. It would be like it's just how do you choose and whether it's a character or the actor. Either way, it's just really hard to choose because all of them were charming their own way. All of them were really cool and funny. And there was a lot. And the balance also they definitely easily managed to balance out the humor here because they were nowhere close going into that trap of what's called the Marvel humor.
Mhm.
They were nowhere near that. It was perfectly timed, nowhere over the top, but in perfect moments, just to give some balance to all the other darker stuff happening. But yeah, anybody else agrees with George Clooney comment here?
I was saying, pull up a picture of Puss in Boots.
Oh my god.
That one I like. I mean, the Salt and
Yeah.
Pepper is giving Tristan
I can see
Gravel
that.
as Farazan, but I think he's much more charming. Not that Farazan's not charming or Tristan's not charming, but he's got an undercurrent of malice that's just under the surface that I don't think Lionel has.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Then I guess we can move to the best of the best. We can just do a whole sweep. So just a brief for people who are watching. Just more pictures of who Alia Ings kind of reminds us of, the charisma and the swag and so on. I don't know. He's just great. He's just terrific. Let's go to the most awesome thing of the show. So let's start with Aidan, and let's all try to be succinct because I think all of us except Shiv are ramblers. So that's the bottom four people
Hey.
on the screen. Let's try all of us to quick condense so that Shiv,
Put a,
I will-
put a
will-
timer on the bottom of the screen.
Let's quite literally look up to Shiv.
Yeah,
Aidan, you go first.
I will apologize first and foremost because I think I misunderstood the assignment on the last one because I already gave my first best things I thought you already had, and I'll apologize again because I don't even remember what I said.
The score.
But the score, yeah, okay, that's definitely the score is my favorite part. And I just like
You can
the
do the
tone.
second favorite if you want.
More positive male role models ASAP. We need more. There are too many snivelly people, and we need more dunk core. So more Dunk the Tall, more Superman.
Hope Dunk.
Yeah.
Hope Punk.
Yes. Yeah, I think that is a great point. I actually did say this when we were waiting for the show to drop. I felt I maybe even in the first episode of the podcast that we were doing about covering this 1917 the show, I did say that it was so refreshing to get a Superman movie and to have that tone be as it was. Just especially now in the last couple of years, and especially at this moment, things are just so overwhelming and gray and
I think people
annoying in so many ways.
underestimate.
And to get these positive things and characters and stories, it is so important. And I mean that's an excellent point.
I just think people underestimate the impact that stories and pop culture can have on society, and I think we've just had nothing but nihilistic heroes and characters and so many evil Superman tropes. I mean, just to name one aspect of it. And I am glad that we're getting more stories like this. Give me 100 more. Let's curb the nihilism out of society. I'm sick of it. I'm nihilistic about nihilism.
Good point. Oh yeah, that's the best kind of nihilism. Brilliant point. Nosy, do you want to tag along on this comment in particular? If you have a comment, and then you can also share your favorite.
I definitely agree. I am kind of tired of the Breaking Bad. Basically, everything turns into Breaking Bad show, and this is not one of them. and I was very happy to see like finally we're getting something that is more about honor, more about like doing good. And so I agree with everybody saying that. My best thing about this show is the cast, but specifically, let's say Dunk and Egg, because without them, we would not have this show. I mean, they're acting. Peter Claffey, he literally deserves to be celebrated because he portrayed Dunk in a way that you could see Dunk's every thought in every scene. There was nothing he could hide, right? And I think in every moment, like, you could see that come up. And I was just like so impressed with that. Such a inspiring character, really. And then with Egg, of course, what a lovely, I love Dexter Solanzo. He's made me a fan of his just from this show. And like I said, like a prodigy, really. He's a prodigy when it comes to his choices, a lot of his like charisma on screen, it shows, right? And like you really feel like you're right there next to them as they're having their conversations, right? And you can just enjoy being with them in that moment. And so this is like what I love about I would say like about the show, like as far as like the goat of the show is these two and the acting and the supporting cast. Maybe I would say like this is as good as Lord of the Rings, the films, the casting, because they really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just saw something behind the scenes. I mean, well said. Absolutely. Do you want to tell us your favorite thing?
Who are you talking to? Shiv?
Yeah. Sorry, no, Jessica. Sorry, did I not say Jessica?
Oh, I mean, yeah, everyone's sick of hearing about my favorite stuff. I liked everything. So, I mean, yeah, casting, I don't think you can get better than that. We'll have more, I have more thoughts about the song at the end that we can get to later. I think I'm going to take 10 seconds to say this. The expansion that the show gave to certain things, I think really added depth and worked really well. So I'm thinking characters like Lionel. I know I've mentioned that before. Rowan, the addition of Sweetfoot getting bought back at the end. One more moment that I feel like was better in the show was Dunk kneeling in front of Baylor saying, I'm your man, instead of like lying down saying it because he's really hurt. I think him kneeling was much more of a powerful moment for me than him being on his back saying that, like, I'm your man, your grace. The realm needs good men. So that moment hit harder. So I think that just not only was it very true to the novella, but the expansions that it did add just, I think, worked for me on multiple levels. And I love when a show can do that. I think that Rings of Power does that really well a lot of the time. So that's what I'll say.
All right. I mean, I don't want to comment too much because you all make good points. So it's just like I feel like I need to just move it to the next point. But does anybody want to like jump in with maybe a comment to Jessica, or we move to Shiv? Nosy, do you have something to add, perhaps?
No,
I feel like you, again, the two of you have the most knowledge of the original story.
And we talked the longest. Sorry.
No, I think like on this, like Jessica and I agree that, I did like the additions. But it's an adaptation. And so like with any adaptation, sometimes the choices have to be made to like bring home a point that you don't quite get when you're reading it unless you're like really sitting with it, because you're TV audience is different from your reading audience. So absolutely nailed it on those accounts, I'd say. In the specifics that Jessica mentioned.
I mean, I guess just to like nail down the point further, it just depends on the adaptation, right? Like depending on the medium, sometimes you have to like just move things like by 35 degrees left or right or something to make it like a bit better. But yeah, even from what I remember from reading it like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I mean, it's basically one for one. And actually now maybe that's a perfect segue into what I was going to say, and then we can move to Shiv. My favorite thing about this show is actually the heart. And again, we already touched upon it, and again I stall. Shit. All right, then, man, you can just jump in. The heart of the show is just everywhere. Like the wholesomeness is like written in like invisible letters across the walls and costumes and faces of everybody. It's just again also like what Aidan also mentioned, like the healthy masculinity. There's no machoism, or rather there is, but it's obviously put into like, hey, this is actually not very good, and everybody suffers for it if you go over the top with these things. Well, you have somebody standing up for the for the little guy, and as Baylor says, defending the innocent, and just being a good person, and like this idea of a true knight. And obviously we can talk about this concept of a true knight throughout history because it's been used in 50,000 different ways, from a random short story to world politics and geopolitics and so on. It's just been so lovely to watch it. I mean, even in the comments here and in the comments during the cover episodes that we did, and also in our Discord and all the channels and wherever else we talked about it, it's just like we just need adventures of Duncan Egg. Like between the canon seasons, they should just put like another like 1 hour of them just having like random adventures and just saving the cattle of a random farmer and just being hosted by the farmer later on, and I don't know, just having a nice time. But yeah, it's just beautiful. It's just a lovely warm show. Shiv, I have stolen this, but I'm sure there's other things to say.
I'm so mad. I had something prepared too, and I ended up messing up early on. But my original thing was going to be the 3 H's. So the misunderstood was going to be the hate, which was Arion and how his character. I was going to talk about that. The humor was the good, and the third one was the heart. And so you stole my thunder there, but we've been talking for what has it been over a month now on the show, so makes sense. Yeah, I like everyone else has said, like it's kind of refreshing to get some like heroes to look up to, and people that are following true norths of morals. And we've been getting so many shows that have been the anti-hero, and it's been a long I don't know how long it's been. Like, when did Breaking Bad air? Because I know that, well, we had The Sopranos. Like, there's been so many anti-heroes. So yeah, it seems like culture's kind of shifting this way a bit. Superman was the big one. And what was really sad, like I was trying to come up with like, inspiring, like different inspiring celebrities throughout the years, and this is all I could come up with so far for now. And yeah, I was sprinkling jokes like Lord Farquaad and stuff like that, Anatar, but I can't think of like any other characters or public figures really. Like, yeah, we can go into like actual public people like they're doing great humanitarian work and stuff like that, but yeah, it was really hard for me to come up come up with a list. Very sad. Who did I miss?
Yeah.
I guess chat. Let me know who should be on this right now.
He does Aragorn, Sam, like
yeah,
But that's the thing. Like they're like 25 years old.
yeah.
Like they're like
yeah.
that's the thing. Like we need more of these things. What did you say? Like Jessica, you mentioned earlier, like Hope
Hope
Punk or something?
Punk, yeah. Hope
Yeah.
Punk, I feel like is the I don't know where I first might have heard it from, the Lorehounds, or just like the internet. Yeah, Steve Rogers is a good one. Just like hope in the face of adversity and nihilism, and choosing to kind of embody that. I feel like we've seen a couple. I mean, Superman was a big one, but I'm trying to, I can't remember right now, but I feel like we've gotten another one recently that was really good. But yeah.
I feel like Ted Lasso kind of had a bit of that for a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, Shrinking, but I know it's messy, but it definitely has a positive spin.
Yeah. I can't think right now.
Well, that just goes to show. I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I guess in a way, Batman, that newer movie with Robert Pattinson, kind of actually had that thing going on where there's especially that one particular shot when that whole thing happens at the end of the movie, and then he's guiding the people through the darkness.
Yeah.
And that shot of him holding like the torchlight or whatever, not the torchlight, but like the flare or whatever. That was a brilliant shot, and it also showed like this dark green world, and then this one figure of hope that came from a place of darkness, but still came out as a symbol of hope. But yeah, I think that's nice. Yeah, that particular scene is just. But again, it's not too many of these examples. So yeah, we definitely need more, and hopefully there will be some. Okay, so we should be getting things wrapped up soon. But before we move to like the final section, let's just quickly discuss a theory that has been we mentioned already on the podcast. We talked about it on our Discord server. I guess, adding Steve Rogers there. So Steve Rogers there is a good call. So Dr. Nosy, Sir Duncan meets the Seven. Just to confirm that you are there and you can hear us, because you're muted.
Yes,
All right, then take us through. So we had the theory about the Seven.
I wonder if you could pull up the list, because I'm like having a hard time seeing what I had down. Let's see. Yes, we have. I mean, this was Jessica's idea, really, where it started. She was like, "Oh yeah, we have. What if Dunk is meeting the Seven? Because this is the trial Seven." And so what we wanted to do was assign, since they're the faith of the Seven, each faith would have some character represented that we'd see in the show. And I think as we kept going, we were trying to like theorize who the Seven are, almost every week. And then we got to the end, and I think we decided to find a list, didn't we?
I don't think we agreed on the final list.
Yeah, I guess my list got to like different, I would say, from yours. But
mine went totally different from what I started at too.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think for the father, which is where we'll start, I think I had down Sir Arlen by the time episode 5 ended, because you could see like number one, he's a father to Dunk. He was also like a protector, some sort of like in a father role. And I felt like he was represented best as in that role. And now at the end of episode 6, since he's like his ghost accompanies, Dunk and Egg, it was almost felt like that was like a very fatherly send off, right? Like, so that would be like what I would say. And then the mother, or maybe we'll get to the mother last. Let me go through the obvious one. So we had the father. The maiden had to be Tenzel, because like she was the one who was, purity and innocence. And she was, she became a victim in the story, and not entirely like completely innocent person, right? Who's affected. And so I think she, of course, represents that. The crone, the character we see foretelling what would happen to Dunk. Dunk is going to be richer than a Lannister. And Egg, of course, the foreshadowing that he will burn. He'll become king and burn. That was interesting. So I think that one Jessica and I agreed on. And then the warrior, of course, Sir Robin had to be him, because he is, he says he's a vessel for the warrior. And so like I was like, yeah, that's so iconic. Of course you are the warrior. The Smith, of course, Steely Pate, he had to be the man, because of course his armor protects Dunk, even though Dunk is not, as we see, like he's not as great of a fighter as Arion, and still like he survives. And so you have to say, okay, there was some craftsmanship into the armor. So Steely Pate definitely contributed to that. Okay, so the last two that I want to mention, only because they're a bit like, I think the most we disagreed on, Jessica. But for me, the mother had to be Makar. Largely because again, he's like a mama boys, right? Like he's a single dad, mama boys, and he's essentially this protector. Like he doesn't want Arion to die, right? So like he goes off into this frenzy in battle, right? And almost like delivers these blows, right? That essentially kill Baylor in the end. But he's somebody who wants to, really, really embody that role of being protector to his kids. And so like he comes off as that. So that's where I would say, like, for me, that was who he embodied. The stranger, this is Baylor, because up until this time, it was sort of like predictable what the Targaryen sort of like dynasty was. And let's say like there was peace in the land. The Baylor's father, Daeron the Good, of course, like everybody like loved him, right? He was called the Good. He was like one of the only Targaryen kings called the Good. And so he was definitely good. And so in this time, in peacetime, Baylor dying the way he did, this brings uncertainty and hence changed what Westeros was about going forward, especially into, the Game of Thrones stories. And so this was like what I was like, okay, he has to be that unknown, that stranger who dies or brings death in his wake, right? Because now, starting with Baylor, right, everybody onwards, we're gonna see how they get to Egg, ascending. So this is like what I would postulate my list would be like.
Firstly, thank you for starting. I don't know which. I think you started this topic, right?
Did you say me or Nosy?
Nosy. I think it was her idea, or was it Jessica?
No, it was Jessica. Yeah, we were we were like going on and on. Yes.
I was going to say, like, whichever one started it, I really enjoyed it, so I'm just really happy that we had it. But then let's hear then from Jessica. What was your take? Where did you disagree?
Yeah, so
or like, what was your angle?
No, this was great fun to kind of go through this. I took a little bit of a different approach than I started with, because where I ended up, I wanted each of the 7 to have like made some sort of really, I don't know, like an impact on Dunk and kind of reflect something about who he is as a person. So I went in a little bit of a different direction than I started with. So I actually think, Nosy, that we only might have ended up with 2 that were the same, but I'm not going to be like, oh, mine's right and yours is wrong. I just decided to look at it a little bit differently. And one thing that made me do that was looking just at the vows, that the knighting vows that they go through when Lionel was knighting Raymond. And we don't ever get the entirety of the vows. I don't think we've gotten in Westeros yet, but we get those for 4 of them. And so it's, in the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and innocent. And in the name of the maid, I charge you to protect all women. And then they kind of cut off there, and we don't hear the rest of them yet in any of the books. But I'll just really quickly talk through where I ended up with each of these people. So I'll start with warrior. And this is where I ended up with Raymond as my warrior. I think that he was very much the embodiment of what it means to be brave throughout this season, and kind of was a great example when, I think I mentioned it earlier, when Dunk is being held at curb stomp point. He comes charging in, like suited up, ready to take on the King's Guard and stand up for his buddy Dunk that he just met. Just kind of goated, behavior right there from Raymond. Stands up to his cousin and, enters into a tournament. He's a squire. He's not like a knight. He embodies bravery to me throughout this season. For the father, I ended up with Baelor. And I think that, justice, Baelor's sense of justice is kind of what led him to enter on the trial of the seven on Dunk's side. He knew that what was just was for, he knew Dunk was innocent, but like it would be just for him to be able to actually go into the trial of the seven and not just be deemed guilty by not having seven people. And that's what caused him to enter into this to begin with. So that's kind of why I ended up there. The mother, this is a tough one because it's about defending the young and innocent. So honestly, let's think about, this is going to sound so weird. I ended up with Rowan on one sense because I think that they connected once Rowan realized that Dunk was an innocent. And that's when they kind of made that connection and they stopped treating him like he was just another guy that was coming to them to engage their services. But another one that I kind of thought for the mother was Egg, because he sort of inspired, or like part of Dunk's journey here is wanting to protect Egg's innocence. That's why he doesn't want to go to Summerhall with him, because he wants Egg away from that sort of toxic situation that is the royal family and just Targaryens in general. And so that might be a little bit of a hot take that Egg is the mother here, but I think obviously that's the key central relationship of this show, and there's not a lot of people that would fit the mold here based on what our description of the mother is. Tansel, obviously is the maiden. I charge you to protect all women. Like, she could also be, sort of be mother. She was an innocent that he protected, but I think this is, kind of a no-brainer. Nosy and I are aligned there. Also the Smith, Steely Pate. I don't really think that we have another option. And here's where we kind of go off the rails. I don't know what the vows are here for the Smith, the crone. I charge you to be wise. This kind of like by Arlen here is my choice for crone, because I think that throughout the show we're seeing Arlen teach Dunk how, like, what it means to be a good knight. And that's kind of the wisdom of Dunk, is just like this goodness that he's kind of embodied and learned from Arlen. And that's sort of his wisdom, because he always says Dunk along, like he doesn't think he's smart, but I think he knows how to be a good knight, and that's what Arlen taught him. And the crone's associated with wisdom. That's why I went there. And he's been kind of the guiding force for Dunk so far. And I think that at the end of the season, he's taught Dunk has learned everything that he can from Arlen, and that's when we see them part. So yeah, and then my stranger is Dunk. So this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think it's at one point he does, like talk about like death follows me, blah, blah, blah. But I think the stranger is also associated with wandering to far places. And I think that just is so hedge knight. Like, Dunk is going to go on lots of adventures to far places, and he's going to be a wanderer, and he's going to sleep in the hedges. and maybe he brings death in a sense, like not in that he intends it, but like maybe it just follows kind of in his wake in situations that I'm sure we'll see in the future. So that wasn't very brief, but I tried really hard. And I think, I wanted all of mine to be someone that I felt like made a huge impact on Dunk throughout this season. And that's kind of why I went with these people. But yeah, there's none of Nosey's I would say like, oh, I think you're wrong. I'm like, no, I think that these interpretations are both valid, and hopefully bring a little something else.
Yeah, I think those are actually both really cool interpretations in like the way, in different way, in the different way that they shaped out. I mean, it was fun to hear both approaches, honestly. I think that maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. I kind of have like an over, like for example, I like Dunk as the stranger. I think that's pretty cool. But then on the other hand, we got like the vessel for the warrior himself. Literally calling himself the vessel for the warrior. So like, I mean, this is why these things are so interesting, because you can approach it for like 15 different angles, and all of them can have a good point. I think this was kind of like maybe the most long running, I guess not a theory, but like a thing we kept doing from week to week. So it was just fun to follow the whole discussion.
It was really fun, because then you'd be like, okay, who did we meet this
and that could fit in here.
Yes, yeah. And of course, like, we know that the god of Westeros, right? The Fate of the Seven, that is, actually one person with 7 facets to him, right? Like, so there's like this, it's kind of fun to see, okay, like, but this is like how Westeros is built up, right? So you have these people you meet and encounter, and so you wonder, okay, who is this to who, because this is reflective of life itself. And so I really like enjoyed doing that every week, because we were like getting the slice of life in the show, and then we'd sit down and be like, okay, wait, what did we learn, right? Like, who do we think was who? And so I think that was very fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. Thank you, Nosy, for participating in that. I think we were probably the only two throwing things out there, but and I don't think there's a right.
Yeah, okay, finish the thought, and then I have.
I was just gonna say, I don't think there's a right answer. Like, I haven't seen this confirmed anywhere, but it is just interesting to think about, like, and to see kind of woven throughout. I would love if Ira came out and said, like, oh yeah, we did that on purpose. Like, you can see in this, but I don't know.
The thing I was going to say, because I didn't follow that whole discussion every week, and I did have my own picks, but I mostly did just enjoyed seeing everybody else discuss it. The one thing I think deserves a shout out was as the maiden. Well, we call her Rowan because the actress, but I did make a point about the maiden being the red-headed lady of the night that we talked about, that Raymond gets together with. And obviously it's a very it's kind of like an ironic opposite kind of thing there, but I did enjoy this idea because it felt like, she did. We kind of got this approach in the first episode when she was warning Dunk about his body. Like, it was a means to an, like it was a means to an end. Like, she was morally and mentally her spiritually, in a way, like she was kind of doing her own thing, and she did not sell herself. Like, she didn't give away who she actually was in that sense. So I really enjoyed this idea where she could represent the maiden, and this one that like charges to defend the women. But also I did think like the maiden or the mother, because also again she had this motherly approach to Dunk, and to especially that first scene when she and that other lady talk about the boys, and we see boys week in week out from tournament to tournament. We see these boys throw in their bodies, get mutilated, die, go through terrible things. It just felt, especially that first scene, as a very motherly approach, and then later on as kind of like I mean, not that she did actively do many things, but it did still feel like she looked out for Dunk.
Mhm.
So she deserves, on my side, this honorable mention. I mean, I'm sure she crossed both of your minds as well.
No, I think, I mean,
as either the minor or the maiden.
yeah, she and Egg were like my mother, because I was like, I don't know, because what was confusing the issue a little was the vow, like, is in the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and innocent. That's for the mother. But then the maiden represents that innocence and purity. Like that's what, who the maiden is. So it's a little interesting. Like the mother, you're vowing to protect the young and innocent, versus the maiden, it's protecting all women. But then, yeah, it's that's why that was a little confused for me. But I like both interpretations.
And in fact, like,
Rowan.
and to go off of what you just said, Jessica, in fact, that episode is called "In the Name of the Mother," right?
Mhm.
And who was the mother who showed up, right? Because Dunk was wanting to stay and flee. I'm forgetting where that is, but he wanted to stay where he was because he was wanting to wait for his mother to come back, right? And he said, "I know it sounds stupid," and then Mother did arrive, and it was in the form of Sir Arlen.
Yeah.
So I think it was like, yeah, there was that too in it, you know.
It's just like
But
so
then
many more angles you
Egg
can go
arrives,
into.
like
Yeah.
Right.
Egg arrives to save Dunk from getting curb stomped too. So it's just like, I don't know. There's
And you
all
could
sorts
be
of
like that.
cool.
Maybe Baylor is protecting him, so maybe he's the mother, and
Yeah.
it's just But it was a great discussion to have, and I'm curious if we'll be able to maybe have like another similar thread going on in House of the Dragon season 3, and that's an awesome segue because I wanted to talk about House of the Dragon season 3. So I'll let's basically quick overview. Season 3 is coming out, I think, in June or July. It's coming out in the middle of summer. I believe it's June.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we saw season 3, and it's really cool because this year that means that we get 2 Westeros TV shows. And as she has showed us here on screen, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms will also come back for season 2. So just before we give our final thoughts about the show and like all these things in general, I just want to touch upon House of the Dragon. I think a lot of people were disappointed in many ways with season 2. So with that in mind, I want to say that I think, and it makes sense, because why would people follow this unless they're like specifically interested in behind the scenes goings on? The thing that happened with season 2 House of the Dragon was they were caught in a strike, as far as I understand things, which kind of led to this weird, and there were a couple other behind the scenes things going on a larger scale. I mean, you can look at Warner Brothers even now, like things are still happening behind the scenes with them. There were some things behind the scenes, and I think one of the strikes also happened that kind of made House of the Dragon have to cut out 2 episodes of the season. So instead of a planned 10 episode arc, we got an 8 episode arc, and the end, which is always the culmination of a season in the Game of Thrones adaptations, had to be pushed to season 3, which meant that we got this whole lead up of season 2, the build up, but we didn't get to that culmination and then the release of Tension. So if you even look at this show, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 5 was the culmination, and then episode 6 is the release. And that's the trope. That's not the trope, but like the system that all the seasons follow in the Game of Thrones adaptations. But season 2, House of the Dragon, didn't have the chance for this. So that's probably the main reason people felt disappointed with it. But I think this means that we're gonna have a big opening to season 3, and then it's probably gonna just keep firing on all cylinders. So I just want to mention this, and then to briefly see what everybody else thinks about what are your expectations and thoughts about season 3, because we're about to get it. So let's start with Shiv, my man. We actually covered season 2 again on our podcast. So hell yeah, how are you feeling about it? What do you think is ahead of us in season 3?
Oh, I'm super excited. I don't want to be greedy, but because the end of season 2 is basically pushed to this season, I'm wondering if that gives a unique opportunity to almost have two climaxes, like one literally at the beginning of the season to wrap up what was going on in the build up there, to then telling a new story that maybe we get a glimpse of the climax for. So, but yeah, I really liked House of the Dragons. I feel like it didn't get as much flowers as it deserved. And I know there's a lot going on when season 1 was released, and a lot of us were very preoccupied with Rings of Powers launching and all that, which is totally understandable. But going back and like rewatching, like I'm really liking it, and it's a show that I feel like, well, especially for someone like me, rewatches benefit because I was super confused the first time I saw season 1. I was like, "Wait, now they're old now? Like, what? Oh god!" And trying to remember who's who, it took forever. Um, so going back rewatching, and there's shows that are able to do that. It just shows like how much detail they put into the thing, and like, even with Game of Thrones, going back and watching those because those hour-long episodes, all the different characters and story arcs, it's really great going back and, picking out new things. And another show like that, another show we covered, Dune Prophecy, there's many characters in that show as well, and another show like that, where the ensemble is so large that you're able to just pick up new things each time you watch it. So, very excited for House of the Dragons. In June, right? Is it June? Should have looked that up.
I think June.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, we covered it, and we covered this one as well, and Dune Prophecy season 2 when it comes up. But yeah, Jessica, what about you?
Yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, I think I'll never say no to HBO appointment television on a Sunday night that goes week to week. Season 2 had some high points. Not my favorite season, but I mean, we've got some, I mean, it's just all downhill metaphorically for these people from here. Like it's gonna be jarring after watching Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's about to get dark. Like, I mean, the messed up person in me is like, I can't wait to see all this shit go down. Like, it's so horrible. But I think with what we've got left, like 2 seasons left is like pretty good. But I'm like, what? There's not going to be any humor. Every episode is going to be horrible to watch and just like the most nihilistic, like anti-hope punk shit ever on TV. But low-key, I cannot wait to see it. Yeah, I think it's just, it's fun to talk about those red wedding, like, Light of the Seven moments that are just horrible. And I feel like we will definitely be getting some of those coming up in this season. Just, I know everything that's going to happen. So like some of them have to be in this season. Yeah, it'll be great.
Lizzie, were you about to say something?
No, I was just continuing. Like, if we're talking about this, I mean, I'm looking forward to all of the horror and the battles. Those are like what I enjoy. The dragons, the dragon fights. My concern, I guess, it has to do more with characterizations. Which is something I felt like season 2 kept going in circles with. And now I'm like, okay, is it continuing to go in circles in season 3? Of course, I'm talking about our 2 mains, our ladies. So, green or black, right? But I kind of still want that to be pretty solid, that they are, there's no wavering at this point, right? I am worried about like some characterization of Rhaenyra. I don't know. We actually don't know what's in season 3. I can't claim to know, but I do get worried when we've had Game of Thrones now, and we know how it ends for Dany. And now I'm like, okay, so is this just the Targaryen way? Are we going to see that again? And so that's where I'm like a bit like, okay, I want to hesitate a bit. So I'm hoping though, like, I mean, all the good stuff what we said about like the horror that we're gonna witness is going to be great. Like, I'm excited about seeing Ormond Hightower. You know, yeah, small role, whatever. But James Norton, I've been watching him for years. I'm so glad he's in Game of Thrones now. Like, you know, so I'm like, oh yeah, finally, right? So I'm excited to see him, see what he contributes, you know, as a warrior for the High Towers. But like him, and then versus like all the other campaigns that we'll see, I think I'm trying to remember exact. I think there are like there are three fronts or something that they'll be showing us, but I'm not entirely sure. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm excited about where Jace goes. You know, you know, the highs he's going to go to and the lows, if there are any. Uh, I'm excited about, of course, like Damon, right? Like where we, you know, this guy got a dream last season, right? So is he still, you know, will that come to fruition here, right? Is And then if it doesn't, what does that mean? So I'm excited about seeing some of these characters that we're gonna, new ones and then the old ones, and seeing like where their heads are at, I guess, you know, and how they're dealing with the upcoming, you know, battle and all of the outcomes of that. So that's, I mean, that's where I would
Yes,
stand.
yeah. I'm happy to hear this because I really feel like there was a lot of negativity about season 2, and I absolutely get it. I guess one of the little perks about us being in FF is that, or like around, like even in the genre community, it's just that people are, you know, if you're, I mean, basically being in the fandom, right? If you see people, like everybody's following what's going on in one way or another, and then you learn things, and then when I got, oh yeah, okay, so they had to cut out 2 episodes, which was supposed to be the culmination of the season, like that just made it okay. Well, it is what it is, and ultimately, what is disappointing when the season is coming out, later on is going to be like 4 seasons of something you're just going to keep watching, and then it's not going to matter whether it was in this season or the next one if it's still a really good episode, for example, or like a huge battle or whatever. So it's cool to hear that. I guess we're all in unison here, and I think even on our, like within the FYF, and I think even within our public Discord and so on, I think most people are pretty excited, which is nice to see, despite all that negative Discord that kind of went on for quite a while around it. Okay. I guess we are kind of at the end. We covered. I was hoping we could get to House of the Dragon season 3, and we did after 2.5 hours of chatting. But honestly, if we did this for 1 more hour, it would basically be the length of the season of Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, and that puts things into perspective really well. But hell yeah! Also, just a quick shout out to hundreds of people we have listening on Twitter. We reached 1,200 people, which is kind of mad over there. So anyway, yeah, let's maybe some closing thoughts if you have any, or you can just sign yourself out, whichever way you want. Let's start with Nosy. So thank you for being with us. And yeah, do you have any final thoughts, closing thoughts, comments, something that you maybe remember you forgot to say earlier?
I don't know if it's about anything I forgot to say, but I think first of all, Fellowship of Fans fandom. I mean, our Discord server, right, is a very exciting place to be. We do have really great conversations, and so I am very like happy. Like we all got to chat there, and we were discussing things as the show came on every week, and I would say like anyone who interested in like having more of an open experience, you know, wants to like have conversations with people who aren't necessarily going to come after you for not knowing details, right? You know, this is a place to really come and just start watching Game of Thrones all over again, and like we're there for you, you know, and essentially like I really enjoy that small community we have right now. And so I would encourage anyone to join that.
Here.
No, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, yeah, we got a few people who try to like mod the community really well there, who try and do modify the community really well, and we're actually almost 2,000 people. We are very close to that number. So people listening, maybe you can be the person number 2,000 that joins us. And we got in a chat actually saying Storyteller finally joined our Discord.
Oh my gosh, Storyteller.
There we
Hooray.
go. I always thought you were missing there. All right, hell yeah. But yeah, once again, Nosy, thank you so much for doing this for us, so I don't have
Yeah.
to join our Discord. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Then let's go to Jessica. Yeah, any thoughts you maybe forgot to say, or any final comments you have?
Yeah, I think the only thing, I mean, the end of the season, like the song choice that closed out the finale, I feel like was just great. Great choice with that 16 tons. I love it. Not something we've really had from the Game of Thrones universe before. And I just think it was like an inspired song choice. I think Ira said that this was like almost pretty much Dunk's theme song. And I think that
That's
the
fair.
whistling that you hear is kind of how Ira pictures like the mental like or the voice in Dunk's head, just kind of like this whimsical sort of whistling, kind of just embodied Dunk for him. And I think there's something about like this was a very important song for George R. R. Martin as well. So when they approached him with it, like it just all made sense. So yeah, I think it was a great season. Like I love a banger of a first season for a show. Like I think this was fantastic. The word of mouth was great. I love when it just like slowly builds, and then by the end of it, it's just like wild. I think the premiere, we were in that Discord channel, like newly opened. Like, okay, if we get one person that's not a member of Fellowship of Fans chatting in here, like we'll call it a success.
Yeah.
And then by the end, I think that channel was maybe sometimes more active than Rings of Power, which is crazy.
Absolutely.
So I had a lot of fun in there with Nosy. And Fia was another like major player in the chat who was a lot of fun and had a lot of great theories and sharing, fan art and videos. Like it was great. So yeah, anyone who hasn't joined the Discord, like it's just a lot of fun. So, and thanks for having me today. I loved this.
And yeah, shout out to Fia. There's been quite a few people there in the chat, but yeah, these were the MVPs definitely to carry the conversation. Hell yeah. And I mean, just obviously thank you for being here, because you are here and you're here to stay. So we'll be doing this.
Appreciate it.
Shiv, I mean, I won't do any big ones. So we do all the stuff together anyway. So anyway, thanks for doing the back end, and then thanks for all the other stuff, obviously. And yeah, do you have any final thoughts?
I'll yield most of my thoughts to do this to you, Strider. More guilt tripping. At some point in time, we gotta cover The Expanse. Anyone
I'm getting
watching,
there.
if you like The Expanse, DM Strider and say he's got to watch this show.
What do you think
was-
about the walking Strider and Jessica through The Expanse idea?
Let's do it.
I'm
do
down.
it. If anyone in the
Really?
chat likes The Expanse, let us know, because I think it'd be a great series to cover. But yeah, sorry. That's my time and my TED Talk.
Well, I'll just. I mean, I'm down for this. We just need to find like a perfect time for this, because yeah, life is a mess. Well, I'll just start off by saying quickly once again, thanks to Nosy for joining us. It was great to have you with us. So yeah, special shout out to you and to everybody else from our Discord, to Fiat, who were with us all these weeks. It was so much fun, and like every Monday and Tuesday. I mean, throughout the week, but like Mondays and Tuesdays just explodes. Like we were just nonstop chatting, and I gotta say, like you all messed up my sleeping schedule, or you helped me really well mess up my sleeping schedule. But yeah, anyway, it's a great community. So it's if you're like if you like Tolkien, that's first and foremost that we are mainly a Tolkien place. But if you like Westeros, if you like all the other nerdy stuff going on, that's the place to be. So yeah, just that quick shout out to our community. That's just been really awesome. Thanks to Jessica for joining us. Thanks to Shiv for doing all the stuff and just always being there along with me and just nerding out constantly all the time without stop. Maybe we should rethink our life choices, but today is not that day.
Stay with dream.
Yeah. We have a lot of cool things planned out for the rest of the year. So besides the fact that we'll be doing this Fellowship Fantasy podcast as we've been doing, we'll be talking about House of Dragon. We'll be doing the Lanterns TV show. We'll be doing a lot of things in between. There's Invincible. There's Daredevil coming up. The last season of The Boys. Dune, Avengers Doomsday. There's an insane amount of nerdy things going on this year, which we'll be talking about. The Odyssey. I mean, it's hard to even name all of them. So regarding this, that's that. And also regarding Rings of Power and Tolkien, there's obviously a lot of cool things going on with that. And later this year, well, let's just say we have a lot of things in the works. Shout out to Ropendices, which is our own newly established series about the background, the behind-the-scenes things about Rings of Power, inspired by the appendices that we had for the Lord of the Rings movies. We have our awesome team working with that, Jessica being one of them. And also we have some second age shows might be showing up very soon and might be coming perhaps regular again, let's say. Well, we'll see. Just throwing that out there. And yeah, just also huge thanks just to anybody else who was on Twitter or anybody else who was on YouTube. And I guess with this we can plug. There we go.
I was about to say that.
Of course you do. I saw you were typing this. I was like, who's gonna do it first? Yeah, I knew what was gonna happen.
I was trying to type something else first.
There we go. Well, the answer is soon. So anyway, yeah, with that, I guess we can close out this. I think we ran for like about the length of the Fellowship of the Ring. So hell yeah.
Jeez.
It's shorter than the show. The whole first season, at least.
This was the first Westeros stream, and yeah, I guess it's first. It's definitely not the last. So yeah, with this, thanks everybody. Thanks to Storyteller and Eden, and we had Victor as well in the chat. So yeah, thank you for chatting with us, and we'll see you soon. And keep an eye out because some very interesting things might be dropping soon. So hell yeah! Until the next time, goodbye and see you soon.
Bye.
Say bye.